David Daggett, attorney at Daggett Shuler Law. And he's going to talk with us primarily about the topic of autonomous cars. You've probably heard the phrase, but do we know what it really is and what's on the horizon for that? So, David, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. Thanks for having me. This is an exciting topic.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah, I used to watch the Jetsons when I was a little kid. Are you old enough to have watched the Jetsons?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if kids today watch the Jetsons, but people flying around in spaceships and
Yep.
taking the spaceships to work and that sort of thing. It looks like the North Carolina legislature thinks that's just around the corner.
That's amazing. But let me go backwards. What exactly is an autonomous car? Because I'm not really sure. Do
Sure.
you drive it or stop it, or how involved is the driver?
Well, it's interesting because we now have legislation that defines what an autonomous vehicle is. Our North Carolina legislature has passed a statute regarding the use of autonomous vehicles. This statute goes into effect December 1st, 2017. That's this year. So
Wow.
an autonomous vehicle is a vehicle that's capable of controlling every aspect of vehicle dynamics on the roadway. So it can do everything. Now,
Wow.
the statute that goes into effect has some specific criteria. It has to be able to handle all dynamics of driving. It has to remain on the scene and call for help in the case of an accident or something like that. So it's got a definition of a number of things it can do. But basically, an autonomous vehicle under the statute has to be able to do everything all by itself. Back to
That's
my friend.
incredible.
Back to my friend George Jetson. So, so yeah, the North Carolina legislature has passed this statute. So we are now regulated in our use of autonomous vehicles.
That's amazing. And now, when is that going to go into effect? And what kind of cars are we going to have to buy to enable that?
Well, the statute goes into effect December 1st of 2017. However, currently there are no vehicles in existence that completely meet that criteria. So again, this is an unusual situation where we have legislation that covers an issue that we don't know when it's going to happen.
Boy, that's for sure.
But at least we're covered when it does happen. But it is interesting, and as we know, Amazon.com is they're testing different ways to deliver faster and more efficiently. Rider share services like Uber and Lyft are experimenting with ways to have autonomous vehicles deliver people. We have Google and Apple, or we hear reports that they're all working on autonomous vehicles. So even though our legislatures may have gotten a little ahead of themselves and are a little futuristic, it probably is on the horizon somewhere.
Wow.
Now, our statute is pretty interesting. Under our statute, if you have an autonomous vehicle, you do not have to be a licensed driver to operate the vehicle, which is a little bit of a misnomer because you don't operate on an autonomous vehicle.
Wow.
And you can ride in an autonomous vehicle alone as long as you are 12 years old or older. So,
12 years old?
12 years old. So an autonomous vehicle, remember the definition, it handles virtually every aspect of vehicle dynamics with no human input whatsoever. So our statute provides that, you can stick your 12-year-old in your autonomous vehicle and drop them off at school.
That's unbelievable. But you mentioned before the idea that it would stop if there was an accident or something like that. So it's interesting to me that the legislature would pass that, because a 12-year-old in an autonomous car that's involved in an accident, I don't think has the maturity to deal with that. Are you saying that this autonomous vehicle literally would take care of every aspect of that vehicle, calling for help, all of
Yes,
that?
yeah, that's a requirement of the statute. Is
Wow,
the car has to be capable of doing that. So
that's incredible.
not only does it have to drive itself, but if there's a problem, it needs to call for help. So
Interesting.
yeah, every aspect of vehicle dynamics.
Well, let me ask you this too, because I had heard, I think in Pittsburgh, I'm not sure, where they were testing some autonomous cars, but there was the opportunity for the driver to override the system. So I guess that's not a fully autonomous car.
Yeah, and I'm not an engineer, but the Society of American Engineers, they have different levels of autonomous vehicles.
Okay.
And to meet our statutory guidelines, it's got to be SAE, Society of American Engineers, level 4 or 5 to
Okay.
meet those guidelines. What's being experimented with in Pittsburgh, and I believe it's Uber who's doing that,
Yes.
and one of the universities there, maybe it's Carnegie Mellon, I'm not sure. One of the universities working with it. They're working with geofencing technology and an autonomous vehicle. That would be a level 4 SAE vehicle. That's
Okay.
getting a little technical, but
Yeah.
that would qualify as an autonomous vehicle. Interestingly, under the new statute, uh, remember it's got to be able to handle every aspect of dynamics of the vehicle. Is that local municipalities are prohibited from passing any additional laws regarding autonomous vehicles. So, it'd be interesting to see with this geofencing technology and some of the new technology as it progresses. Some of these technologies, I know the name, but I don't know the intricacies enough to pass it along. But
Yeah.
the geofencing we're starting to hear a lot about with
Yes.
Google and
Right.
search engines and ad placement and
Right.
that sort of thing.
Why don't
There's
you
no
explain that? Geofencing.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I can. Uh, I'm not an expert on that, other than Google uses geography to define the space within
Okay.
which it provides content to users.
Right.
And so you program a geofence so content only goes to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, or
Okay.
only goes to Forsyth County in North Carolina, those sort of things.
Right.
So what they've done in Pittsburgh is they've geofenced an area to test on autonomous vehicle. So they're using the same technology that search engines are using, but they're using it to communicate with autonomous vehicles within a limited geographical range.
Yeah.
So that may be the first thing we see.
Okay.
So our new statute could apply to an autonomous vehicle that's geofenced, let's say near our School of Science and Math,
Okay.
who
Yeah.
may be at the cutting edge. So
Interesting.
it could be that sort of thing that we first see. But when I first saw the statute, I just giggled a little bit that we have a statute that covers something that does not even exist right now.
It really is amazing.
And that 12-year-olds can ride in a vehicle by themselves, and that no driver's license is needed. Another interesting thing is if the autonomous vehicle violates any statutes, the registered owner is responsible for that statutory violation. Uh,
Well, that
so,
doesn't make sense.
well, does it or doesn't? I don't know. It certainly could open a can of worms.
Yes, it certainly could. So you're saying it doesn't, well, I guess you have to do that. So basically, if
Yeah,
the autonomous car violates a speed limit, you're saying that the driver would get, or the person in the car would get the violation
no,
when they
no,
weren't even driving.
no.
No,
The registered owner
the registered owner.
would get the ticket.
That's right, because we've got 12-year-olds in
Yeah,
the car.
and they might not even, the registered owner might not even be in the car. So yeah, no,
Wow.
no, but it's interesting. I think it's a fascinating thing, and it's a good lesson on the law. that one of the things that the law does, in the law, it changes and it adapts to society
Yes.
where society is. And
Yes.
the law has to do that.
Right.
And, everybody asks me, and you know me, I'm in the middle of the road politically, but they ask me regarding the Constitution. Am I a strict constructionist, or do I believe in integrity of the Constitution? And I, because, yeah, I believe in the Constitution, but I don't think they ever thought about autonomous vehicles with 12-year-olds riding around.
Right.
So the law has to adapt to current and now even future circumstances, is a way to give society a way to organize itself
Right.
and rules to live by. And so while we've joked a little bit about our legislature in this new statute that doesn't apply to anything yet, the flip side is kind of proud of them and being ahead of the curve on this.
Yes.
In starting to define what are going to be accepted principles in our society
Right.
when autonomous cars get out there.
Yeah.
And having this statute out early certainly gives the ability for ongoing debate, clarification, refinement, so that when we do have these autonomous vehicles, society is better ready
Yeah.
to handle the various issues that we know are going to come from having them on the roads.
Yeah.
So,
Very interesting. What about some of the dangers that you foresee?
Well, in the history of machines always have problems of some sort. And it's hard for me to believe that these machines aren't going to have problems in some way.
Yeah.
You take, and I like our automotive manufacturers. I have nothing against them, but how many times have you heard of somebody that got a car that's a lemon?
Right.
Or you have something with your car that you have just an ongoing problem that you're trying to troubleshoot and take care of. Well, if that affects an autonomous car that's out on the road, I think there could be some problems.
Yeah.
Obviously, a fail-safe that the automakers are obviously ahead of me on thinking on this, but a fail-safe has to be that when there's a problem, the car pulls over and shuts down, not just keeps rolling. But it's going to be interesting to see how all this unfolds.
Yeah.
It's coming one way or another.
It is. One thing, without getting too deep, one of the things that's crossing my mind, you've talked in the past about some of the current drive by different corporations and things to require arbitration clauses. I wonder if we'll see any of that where the manufacturers will require an arbitration clause, which I'm sure, personal injury lawyers would fight vehemently, and I believe should. But that would be, I just had a thought about that. That would not be good, but I wonder if they'll do that in light of the fact that there might be a push to try and sue the manufacturer for the accident as opposed to.
That's a whole nother kettle of fish that would be a long program to get into. But basically what we're seeing is corporations trying to insert arbitration clauses in every contract that they enter into. The reason is because it's easier and better for the corporation, not necessarily easier and better for the individual. Yeah, so if you're looking after individual rights, you have to be very careful about imposing an arbitration system that protects our civil rights. That's just a very difficult thing to do. So,
David, why do you think they passed this legislation now? Because as you said, even though it in my mind, it does look good for the North Carolina legislature that they're ahead of the curve on this. But why would they do this so soon? Is there any reason?
Well, maybe they're trying to avoid hot button issues like taxes and healthcare and all the other things that are going on. And
Yeah.
this is one that was relatively easy with not any opposition because it doesn't even exist yet.
Yeah.
And it gets us forward thinking. North Carolina has become a technology state.
Yeah.
And, if we're going to get autonomous vehicles on the road, if we're going to have companies geofencing and testing autonomous vehicles, we want to have a statutory framework in place so that North Carolina can be at the leading edge of that curve. So I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing in that legislation that I question is the age requirement.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a head scratcher for me. Is it the autonomous car also a babysitter and a chauffeur service and those sort of things.
Right.
But that's it's George Jetson. It's the Jetsons.
It's like instead of putting the iPad in front of the kid, you just put them in an autonomous car and send them out for a couple hours.
Yeah.
I assume there's some way the parent is going to program this car. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll wait to see. So the next question is, where can we get these? They sound great.
Yeah, none exist right now.
Oh, okay.
So, this vehicle that meets the statutory guidelines does not currently exist.
Interesting.
There are some limited tests going on, cars that are getting close to meeting the statutory definition. But as of right now, this vehicle doesn't exist.
So currently there's even for a limited version like they're testing out in Pittsburgh. So for right now, for the average person, are you saying that there really is no way to get your hands on one of these?
No, it doesn't exist.
Okay.
It absolutely does not exist.
Very interesting.
Right.
Well, we'll have to talk again when this comes to fruition, which I would guess is going to be a long time. I can't wrap my head around this, to tell you the truth.
No, I can't either. And the predictions I'm seeing is automakers saying 2021 at the earliest. If that's the earliest, before it becomes, regular in society. I mean, I look at things. How long did it take us to get just backup cameras in most vehicles?
Right.
I mean, it took 15 years for that to happen. Now, technology is moving faster and faster. It's also going to be very expensive, so there's going to be a financial barrier. So this isn't on the near horizon, but at some point it's coming.
Yeah. Well, David, relative to the idea of driving and traffic and things like that, if someone were to have a question, how can they reach your office in regards to a legal issue?
They can reach us online at daggettshulerlaw.com, or we got a great friendly staff at 336-724-1234.
You definitely do.
Yep.
Well, listen, thanks for being with us today.
Okay, thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. If you have questions or comments, just leave them right on this page, and we'll make sure we answer them for you. Thanks.